This Easter Monday, I'm reminded that we've long since said goodbye to God and gospel and instead ushered in the creed of diversity and identity politics. Reports today suggest Priti Patel may have hinted at a possible change to the Prevent scheme, the government's besieged anti-extremism programme. I was reminded of how reluctant we are to question this diversity orthodoxy in a way in which we aren't afraid to call out the religious orthodoxies of our nation's past. The Prevent scheme, it's failed to do its job in a list of horrific murders over recent times. Murders that we no longer speak of or think to remember because it isn't politically correct to do so. Murders like that of Joe Ritchie Bennett, David Wales and James Furlong in Redden during the first lockdown of June 2020, 3 gay men all stabbed to death, their murderer dismissed his victims, according to the Mail, as wrong-uns and they deserved it. The murderer was sentenced to a whole life order, meaning he'll likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. It's not, if you ask me, I cannot imagine what it must be like for the family. But I doubt you even remember these men because we've become, as a nation, I'm afraid, so very desensitised to such attacks and murders. The Tory MP, Sir David Amess, a fighter for Southend and by all accounts, a decent, hard-working bloke that we were lucky to have had dedicate his life to the mercy of the ballot box. His constituents and the House of Commons were really lucky and fortunate to have him. Only 6 months ago, whilst he was at a surgery meeting in his constituency, he was stabbed more than 20 times. I repeat, 20 times by a man that had plotted to kill an MP for voting to bomb the murderous and barbaric ISIS in Syria. This man was also sentenced to a whole life order for this brutal murder. Both of these men were referred to the Prevent Counter-Extremism programme on both occasions. The programme actually failed to recognise the threat that these men still pose to society. There's now been an independent review commissioned, delayed time and again, kicked down the road like the ultimate political hot potato. Not good enough. According to The Times, in research published today, 7 of the 13 terrorist attacks in the past 5 years were carried out by offenders that were known to Prevent. And Islamic extremists made up more than 2/3 of the 229 terrorists in custody last year. I don't think you'd know any of those things because we're simply not allowed to talk about them. Now, I'm not for a moment suggesting that all acts of terror are committed in the name of Islamic extremism. But were this, folks, Northern Ireland terrorism or some form of far-right ideology, we'd be discussing it on talk shows, we'd be discussing it in comment sections, we'd be discussing it in Parliament. And folks, for those who do preach the gospel of our diversity, if you ask me, these people do themselves absolutely no favours in seeking to downplay the threat of extremism in Britain. The best way to win people to your argument is to defeat opposing ideas. And I don't know about you, but I think it's pretty safe to say that a harmonious, multicultural, multi-faith British Isles isn't what Islamist extremists actually want. Prevent, no doubt in fear of the politically correct brigade, has failed to collar potential terrorists by accepting at face value that their rehabilitation has worked. I dare say it's a hell of a lot easier to sign someone off than it is to be accused of being hostile to young Muslims. Still, we unquestionably cannot allow political correctness to allow extremism of any kind to fester and destroy our liberty and diminish our security, because we're too afraid, frankly, to counter it. The Prevent programme should sit well above political correctness, of fear of accusations from this commentator or that politician. It should be there to apply the law and keep our people safe. As Patel has shown in her determination to solve the English Channel migrant crisis, I hope that this is yet another tricky topic that the Home Secretary is willing to address head on.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.